aprender. Que no se quede nadie sin aprender.
La cultura es la verdad que el pueblo debe saber para más nunca perder su amor por la libertad.
Alright, so I think it's January 4th. I don't even know. 2026. Yesterday morning. You know, just like any other screen-addicted person, checked that phone and had a little message from a friend saying, showing, a headline of Maduro getting kidnapped by the U.S. government, the president of Venezuela. And so, that happened. And I'm not really a news show. This is not really a news show. It's more one person among many giving their opinion on whatever they want. Amateur journalist, amateur learner sort of project. And I invite anybody out there who listens to and, wants to join in the conversation, to reach out, because I'm not doing this for myself, I'm doing this. I mean, it helps me in a practical way of staying on, a learning habit, but it also pressures me, it adds pressure to get out there and socialize and organize, and to even organize the family. Like, that's where I put a lot of emphasis in my life on, is trying to build relationship with family, the people that are closest to me, and building something worthwhile. I don't want to just live just to live. I want my people to live happy, prosperous, healthy lives, and proud lives, and right now that's not what the sense I get in terms of a lot of things happening in our day-to-day lives in this country, but it is very small as well. I mean, everybody's got a different situation. Maybe you out there have a beautiful situation, maybe you have a worse off situation. Right now, the people of Venezuela are experiencing something very dangerous and very scary. The war against Venezuela has escalated. This is not something new, but this has escalated. El Imperio Yankee, and the head of the snake, and it was really Marco Rubio and almost, what is it? Well, for Venezuela, 30 plus years in the making, this project, but it's not over, and the government still stands. The government still stands in Venezuela. They just took a leader, and they killed people in Venezuela. They killed innocent people. That's the main story about this whole thing. Yes, the leader of the country got stolen, and the symbol, one of the symbols of the socialist project and the human project and the democratic project in Venezuela got captured, and it's a psychic blow. But real world people is what this is all about, and many people got hurt and killed by this bombing. This was a illegal international attack, a declaration of war. It's not really a declaration. I don't know why I say that. I mean, it's the war against Venezuela is long, just like the war against Cuba is long. In fact, I just recently read this book on Cuba by Vijay Prashad and Chomsky, and it was very dense, very informative. Within just 150, 160 pages, a really good synopsis book of the relationship between the Cuban Revolutionary Project and Cuba as a whole, with the relationship with the U.S. government ever since the beginning of the revolution, and the antagonistic, more than antagonistic, that's saying it lightly, the blatant violence and indignant, oppressive attacks and strategies that the U.S. has aimed towards Cuba, the country where my dad is from. And so is very, this moment in history is a disappointing one, but it's not, history never ends. History never ends, and it's always continuous, and it can always change. And there's still a lot of good things going in this world, and people waking up. That's really the number one thing is do we want civilization? Do we want, or do we want to create a world that is pro humanity, for humanity? I think a lot of people do. And so and that's why I bring it up, because Cuba and Venezuela, they have been trying, and they continue to try, and they continue to persist. And there's a lot of interests focused on Latin America right now, and I would say that we all ought to have interest with Latin America right now, because this is a situation where if you don't stand up, if we don't stand up for people, then we stand up for nobody. We don't even stand up for ourselves. I saw that some of the Venezuelan community in Doral were on channel 7 or whatever channel, celebrating that Maduro was captured and thanking Donald Trump, and basically crying and all this type of stuff. And it's there's been a concerted effort to sort of sway hearts and minds on this whole socialist project, this whole Venezuela, the Venezuelan Revolution and the Cuban Revolution, by expats, the immigrants that come to this country, people like my father. And but my father, is sort of apolitical. He is one of many people that I've been talking to about this sort of ramp up of the Monroe Doctrine 2.0. It's not really a 2.0, It never really stopped and started way before the Monroe Doctrine. It's just the industrialization and the growing economy and military base of the U.S. government happened to get very strong in the early 1800s. That's why Monroe kind of proclaimed that at that moment, feeling like he was, the U.S. capitalist class could challenge Europe in the imperial game, of going or stealing lands and enslaving people. That was only 200 years ago, literally. The Monroe Doctrine was 1823, and that was only 203 years ago. And you think that people change very fast and that we evolve very fast within 200 years, but it's not necessarily true in a lot of different respects. No matter the technological advancements and sort of the historical record and the advancements in philosophy and all these laws that we say that are very official and very technical and very precise and very very grand, almost non-human. But everything that we do is human. Everything that we've created is human, from my point of view. Even when we say things are natural and unnatural, like let's say I'm looking at mouse, a mouse for a phone, a computer. I say that touching this is an unnatural product, but it's not. This is made of things of the earth. It might not be green, it might not get me dirty when I touch it, but even that, dirty is another eye of the beholder word. And I'm saying this all to say that the philosophy is something that we, is human, it's fallible, it's inconsistent, it's natural, and but it can change and it can grow and it can depreciate and it can degrade, and the same with culture. And I think that the U.S. culture, a lot of aspects to it is very degrading to the human mind and to the average American's health and wealth and prosperity and education levels. And I think that this government and those that they work for within fascism, there's two branches of fascism. It's the corporate and the governmental state. It's a one state situation that are run by the corporate sector and the governmental sector, from my understanding. And that's kind of what we have here in this country, and what they're really trying to build and to coalesce. That's why you see a lot of monopolization efforts going on in the country right now. One example was it Netflix and Warner Brothers merger, or a want to merger. And there's it's not just that. It's many different media companies, many different companies in general that are going through, sort of anti, it's not my issue area right now, but I know that, some bad stuff is going on with monopolization. Let me say something else, because I brought up these conversations that I've been having within my circle. I talked to a lot of people in the last 48 hours, and nobody that I have talked to likes what happened. I also don't think that anybody in my life per se has necessarily been overly focused on this as a super pressing issue in terms of their practical lives, which is where we disagree. But that's where we disagree on a lot of different things. But I understand people in this country are struggling, and it's hard to interpret everything, especially through the certain systems and customs that we're used to in this country and that this country promotes. So it's tough, it's tough. But I think conversations with people around you, not like-minded people, and even like-minded people to push each other to build something. That's why I'm seeking it on a little bit, because it's now or never in a lot of different respects. So yeah, I've heard a lot of points of view, and there's certain people who say, well, this is horrible. Another example of Trump doing an illegal thing and something that's, why is he being able to get away with this, and it's just another thing, but this is crazy because he stole somebody's president. But that, well, I'm not too sorry for Maduro, and also this might be a blessing in disguise for the Venezuelan people, and maybe they'll finally get some economic opportunity and all this type of stuff. Very vague notions is what I'm getting from people of obviously not everybody sees it that way, but a lot of people do see it that way. And I'm in South Florida, okay? For the audience, I'm based in South Florida, okay? The United States, okay? They know where I am. They know where all of us are. I'm a concerned citizen for in terms of privacy and privacy rights and all this, but at the end of the day, I think that we are all, maybe subconscious. I mean, maybe we don't know at all, but it's safe to say we live in a very surveillance state. Okay, it's a lot of people refer to it as the surveillance state or a surveillance state. How do you think that they got Maduro? Look, maybe he was in the governmental palace, and obviously, that's where you'll find the president. But how were they so cleanly able to go in and out, and there was no, from what I've read so far, and I'm not the 100,000% best source. I can give whoever needs sources, but Telesur has been doing good. People's Dispatch, look at their articles on this. See what Vijay Prashad is saying on this. See what Breakthrough News is saying on this. They had actually a good panel yesterday, right in the aftermath of the kidnapping, and they had Vijay Prashad on, and they also had this journalist from Venezuela, and she laid it down. I mean, she really, I would love to maybe splice some of her commentary in, because at the end of the day, this is who this issue affects, is the Venezuelan people.
First of all, we've been up since 2 a.m. in the morning, everybody, since we heard the explosions, since we were listening to the planes on the sky and just trying to figure out what was happening. And of course, the Venezuelan government finally confirmed that we were indeed being attacked by the United States. And at least 7 points in Caracas were hit by U.S. strikes, between civilian populations to military assets. It wasn't just military complexes like the U.S. is saying. There are actually residential areas that were also hit. For example, in Fuerte Tiuna is not just a military complex, it is also a residential area. And so people there were victims of these US bombings. So yes, we've been up the entire night. Then this morning we went out to near the Miraflores Palace. We were just there listening to people who gathered outside in the streets. They were taking turns, taking the microphone and just talking about what was happening, denouncing that President Maduro was indeed kidnapped by the United States. He was not captured, he was not seized, he was not arrested because he's not a criminal, he's not a drug trafficker like the US has been saying all of these months, with the excuse to try to overthrow Maduro and kill him, or in this case, kidnap him. And of course, people have been saying that this is the moment to show strength, this is the moment to show support with each other, solidarity, to remain calm, but at the same time, to not let our guard down and to stay on the streets, to continue fighting, to continue denouncing by every means necessary that what is happening in Venezuela, it is regime change. What is happening in Venezuela, it is an illegal U.S. bombing against a civilian population, against a sovereign country. And of course, we know that all of this, what's behind this entire military operation, it is what President Trump announced. He wants to take control of the Venezuelan political life. He wants to take control of Venezuela's oil resources. And that is the entire reason why this is happening right now. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about drug trafficking. We know that those are lies.
And if the media that you're listening to, okay, and this goes to propaganda, if the media you're listening to is not voicing the people of Venezuelans, or Venezuelans in Venezuela, then that already should be a red flag, a red alert, because this is not a U.S. issue. He shouldn't be tried under U.S. law. That is empire stuff, okay? That's empire stuff. Do we like being in an empire? Do we support an empirical, colonial, and imperial fascist regime, or do we not? So it doesn't work that way. If you think that the Venezuelan people despise this man and would want to overthrow this man and all this, then you should trust in the people of Venezuela to handle the issue. Or you yourself if you care that much, that vigorously, do research into the issue. But no. A lot of people rely on the sources of their fathers. Not literally, but yeah, sometimes literally, They get the same sources as their fathers, and, you can't just rely on, Instagram reels and Facebook memes and seeing what Channel 7 says and, reading the Miami Herald and watching CNN at the airport or flippantly while you're washing dishes and not getting on the ground from multiple angles, from multiple political points of view, from literal Latin sources, from literal Venezuelan sources, then you don't know enough to say, and just say it, just say it. But this culture teaches people to be indignant ignoramuses, all right? And I'm not trying to, I'm talking to myself right now. I'm almost kind of venting. So it's 2026, okay, and this is one of the first episodes of the new year. So I kind of want to say, what do we want to do with this program? Obviously I am the one that puts it together, but sometimes I have people on, and that's actually my favorite thing to do, is to talk to people about these sorts of issues and create a conversation together and learn together and kind of organize a common understanding and common project, and maybe work together hopefully on projects. And I've done that in the past, and I want to do more of that in the future, especially this year. So that's one of my, you could say, goals with this podcast for this year, is making this more of a consistent program, more of an open program for activists to come on, teachers, learners, people on any side of the political or human aisle. Everybody's human. I want to kind of hear all different perspectives. Even the most ignorant people you could learn a lot from. That's why I kind of speak on the Venezuelan the row clip from the people who were cheering, not in a too judgmental way. They believe what they believe, and I respect them as human beings, and they have every right to believe what they want. But what they will not allow sometimes is a respectful and honest conversation. And that, if we're going to have a one-on-one, I demand that from people that I speak to, and if they don't give it to me, then you don't have to respect them by staying in that conversation. You can take yourself out of that situation. And if they're in your space and come to you and start going after you, then you have every right to defend yourself. Which kind of reminds me, and I feel kind of guilty because I haven't been in the streets recently, and I really should have been out there and building more connections and showing my distaste. But I'm pretty sure this government knows that everybody has a bad taste in their mouth with what they're doing. But it's still important to get out there and organize it. Protests and rallies are very good at organizing spaces. That's why the police are there and the ops are there in disguise often. So people have to be aware of that too, and you got to make very calculated decisions when you resist a very powerful entity. I mean, it's kind of like if you owe a loan shark money. I mean, you kind of gotta always have your head on a swivel. I mean, at least from what I've heard, I've never owed money to a loan shark. I'll be honest with you. So yeah, I want to do more stories centered around Florida, local politics, because this is, this is kind of like the headquarters of of the war against Latin America is here in South Florida. You know, you got many of the warmongers and the war planners here around where I live. And for example, well, not for example, you know, we shouldn't go too deep into it on this episode. I'm actually going to have hopefully somebody soon here talking with me about a little more Florida politics and maybe the Israel lobby connection, and hopefully he knows a little bit about the Cuban anti-socialist, anti-communist sort of coalitions down here in Florida politics and Florida media. But I'm learning about that independently, so for sure soon I want to talk about that. And if anybody out there knows some things, you know, reach out. Recently, Benjamin Netanyahu, you know, the war criminal and genocide in chief of Israel, so-called Israel, came here to close by actually, in Palm Beach to Mar-a-Lago, and a hotel near there as well. And he was closing it up with Trump, and they were talking more about genocide and evil satanic things. And there's protesters here in Boca Raton and West Palm Beach, in Palm Beach, and we've covered them on the show, you know, and there's more than them, but there's a consistent protest going on every single Saturday from 3 to 5 p.m. in Boca Raton City Hall. And I've talked about it before. And they're still out there, and not enough people are going out. And because this is a stronghold for the opposition, and people who believe in human rights need to make that known right now. And but he was not arrested upon arrival. He was actually treated with very nice kid gloves by the local police and political class. Education is key, theorizing is key, but practice is essential. That's what we can do on this podcast. That's what I would like it to become, okay? More local, more constructive, more of a discussion show and a co-learning show and a building on knowledge, you know, a dialectic sort of platform. And yeah, I mean, we got trash incinerators that are threatening to pollute even more of Miami-Dade County. So we gotta build power against that. Data centers arising in South Florida as well. The further development, and you know, development is a synonym for destruction of the natural habitat, the ecosystem that is essential for living life on Earth. And we are a living life on Earth, and so, you know, Florida is dying by the developers, and it's looking like, because we're on a downturn economically on a national scale, and we have, you know, a massive insurance fraud history in this state, and you know, availability in the slavery of insurance in a certain way in this state is incredible. And I think that all the what people call like the financial world, or the financial people, the investor class, they see Florida as a, what's it called, people in the stock market, you know, like short-term gain potential before the crash, you know, quick flips before this thing falls apart. So, and quick contracts, you know, like get money up front, make a deal with a local politician, and you know, both get cut in on the public funds and the consumer. I mean the civilian investment and the, you know, overall investment. and cash out quick. They're raiding. These fascists are raiding the federal government. They're gonna create fiefdoms all throughout this country. Is kind of what I see it turning into. At least that's what That's what they're projecting to turn this thing into. Because war is eternal. They believe in eternal war. All different types of war. And so that doesn't exclude within the country. So, if you're, I might be too rash in my, thinking. Maybe some might think that, oh, well, we're not that far along, or, oh, that shit is not, I don't see that, or that's not happening to me, and that's not in my peripheral view, and maybe I'm speaking to a lot of those people. Maybe it's a creeping build. This type of thing is a creeping build, and it forces people, because we are ants on this earth. Okay, we're very small compared to how large of a living world this is. So keep attuned and join the program and help along this, the fight. We gotta fight against these forces. Everybody loves Star Wars. Everybody loves Star Wars, but nobody wants to. Everybody just wants to play pretend. Pretend. Real life is exciting, and. So yeah, you won't be able to hear me over this rain, but peace out. We'll talk another day.
Esta ocasión de aprender, porque aprender a leer es aprender a vivir.
Que no se quede nadie sin aprender. Que no se quede nadie sin aprender.
No hay que dejar para luego el gesto maravilloso, profundamente glorioso, de darle la luz al ciego.
Que no se quede nadie sin aprender. Que no se quede nadie sin aprender.
El patriota siempre en vela cumple su deber civil, ayuda con el fusil y también desde la escuela.
Que no se quede nadie sin aprender. Que no se quede nadie sin aprender.
Que recuerde y tome nota, que tome nota y recuerde aquel que su tiempo pierde.